What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the CrazyFaceUno Podcast, where everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. What's your story? If you'd like to support the show and help us tell more stories like the one you're about to hear, please visit CrazyFaceUno.com, where you can purchase items from our online store or donate. As always, I'm your host, Shane McNeely, and boy, are you in for a treat today. It's my honor and privilege to introduce our guest today from the old stomping grounds of Minnesota to newly relocated Kim Marek. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much, Shane. Excited to be here.
Did I butcher your last name?
No, you did it great.
Perfect. It's like funny because your closest friend, everybody, like the last several podcasts, I've asked the same question because I keep forgetting to ask people and make sure that I'm getting it right. But it's funny, like the people you're closest to or your friends, sometimes you don't like say their last name or like say like, I don't know, like you don't say their name the same way or you know what I mean? And
yeah.
So like I've found myself going, can you just tell me how you say your name? Like, it's kind of awkward, but it's like important. But here we are. It doesn't matter because I keep talking about this and asking people if I got it right. So, nonetheless,
you nailed it.
Here we are. Yeah. Well, welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. And yeah, I'm pumped to learn more about you and to hear some of your stories. I know you are one of the most adventurous people I know, and I think that's awesome. Cool.
I'm excited to be here and yeah, bring it on. What do you want to know?
Sweet. Well, why don't you fill us in on kind of where you're at today and what you're up to. I don't even know what your job is. I know you just relocated and you're out on the West Coast doing some fun stuff. What are you up to?
Yeah, so I am currently living in Eugene, Oregon, and if you would have asked me 5-10 years ago if I ever thought I'd live in Oregon, I would have said, hell no. Just not something that was on my radar, but I am living in Eugene, Oregon, and I am running the marketing department at Burley Design, which is an outdoor company that does trailers for cargo and children, mostly for bikes, but they also do kind of like strollers and ski kits and things.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. That's fun. How did this whole process come about? Because you were working for Salsa Bikes, is that right? I like this.
So working for QVP, which owns Salsa, okay. But I was on the distribution side. So yeah, I was still in the bike industry, but just not with a brand specifically.
Nice. Are you like happy to be out there? I know we were talking a little bit before. It's, we've both moved around the same time, to be honest, and the friendship side of things is always like difficult. We both had pretty established, networks of friends and people and whatnot. But as far as job wise, are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. It's funny looking at different parts of life and kind of anticipation for this. I was thinking about my life and throughout the years, and I think finally for the first time in my life, I'm really excited to be putting my head down in work. And yeah, it's funny because we were talking about how it's so hard as an adult to move somewhere and not have a network. And I think for the first time, actually this is my second time besides college really doing this. I had moved to Alaska and didn't have any friends there either, but for whatever reason at this point in my life, it's a lot easier and I've enjoyed it a lot more, and it's been not as much of a struggle, and I've really taken to liking life on the West Coast and just loving everything that's happening right now and more embracing it than ever before.
That's awesome. That's great. I love that. And what did you say your title was? What was it?
Marketing manager.
Marketing manager. So pretty lots of, I'm assuming you're around a computer a lot. Is it like meetings, kind of strategizing, or what's your day-to-day look like?
It's all of the above. Pretty small operation here. There's only 25 employees total. And
cool.
So that means you do everything from the nitty-gritty detail work to strategy. But so I'm definitely doing everything from looking at a year-long plan to 10-year plan to rolling up my sleeves and getting in there and placing ads and coming up with copy and design work as well. Definitely a full service role, but I love it, and I have a great team I'm working with.
That's awesome. So one thing I really like to do, and now that we've kind of established where you're at these days and kind of what you're doing, let's go ahead and let's go back. Let's take it back to childhood. How would you describe your childhood? What was your childhood like for you?
It's been funny. I've been thinking about that too, and I would say it's pretty normal, pretty standard. I grew up in small town Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Family was in a farming town. Yeah, nothing super exciting at the time. Like I thought the world of it when I was growing up, but looking back, it was pretty bland. But I'm very thankful for everything my parents did for me and gave
Yeah.
and provided for me, and definitely made some really awesome friends. But yeah, it was a very small town. I feel really lucky to have grown up where I did, and we played a lot outside in the dirt. Didn't have a lot in ways of anything in terms that cities offer, so we definitely
Yeah.
got creative. Definitely rode through some cornfields in my day. Went fishing and hunting. Hung out with
Yeah.
my friends. It was pretty chill. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was good.
Do you have siblings?
I have an older brother. He's 5 years older than
Older
me.
brother. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever met him, so I don't remember if you had a sibling or not. But yeah, similarly, I kind of grew up in like rural Indiana, Illinois, both, kind of moved around a bit. So I get that. Like lots of times on the bike, out in the backyard, climbing trees, I lived in surrounded by cornfields and bean fields and whatnot. So you found fun, exciting things, or made up fun and exciting things to do
Yep.
in that area, and it led to some creativity, I think, at some point in time. But yeah, it's interesting growing up in a rural kind of like area. Did you have you talked about playing in the dirt a lot, but what were some of your interests? What were some of the things you enjoyed doing as a child?
I really liked running. I was always running around places, going
Yeah.
a mile a minute. I really loved hunting and fishing. My dad was really big into it, and my brother was as well. So it was kind of a fun family thing for me to
Yeah.
get into. And yeah, I would say I wasn't as outdoorsy as I would have liked to have been at that age, but definitely found myself wanting to go for hikes or bike rides, or hang out with my friends and watch movies, or
Sure.
lay out under the stars, things of that nature.
Yeah. Do you still hunt?
I actually just bought a shotgun because I want to get back into bird hunting.
Nice.
So that'll be something I pick up. But it's funny, moving to a new place, you lose all the, the insider trading tips on where to go hunting.
Sure,
So
sure.
it's a new experience.
Yeah, I'm sure. And especially you're in, the West Coast. I'm sure it's a little bit different out there, maybe than, Wisconsin as well. Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that'll be fun. That's a fun sport. Bird hunting isn't something I've really ever done a whole lot of. I've went like maybe once or twice growing up. But yeah, but the same, like those hunting experiences, it gets a bad rap, but it's so much fun, and it's really a unique experience that I think that more people should have of hunting, eating your own, your own food, and something that you've worked hard to provide for. I think that's a special thing.
Definitely.
What did you say you wanted to be when you grew up?
Whew. I wanted to probably be a pilot or a sailor of some sort.
Nice.
And funny enough, actually, as a kid, I was really into sailing. And then later in life, I was able to get more into it. And I just found out there's a really good sailing group out here. So I'm excited to get to know them a bit more. But yeah,
Cool.
probably something with flying or sailing, something where I was moving and traveling the world.
Yeah. What do you think like spurred that on, or like that desire?
Just sense of adventure. I think I've always been pretty creative in terms of making stuff up in my head of going places. And I love
Yeah.
culture. And so I think just the opportunity to explore something new and experience something new has always been at the core of who I am.
Nice. Nice. What was like middle school, high school, if we kind of transition into that time of life? What kind of a student were you? What was like middle school, high school for you? Did you have a lot of friends? Were you a good student? What was that like?
I've always had a pretty core group of friends. So I'm actually two friends in particular. Their names are Emily and Amanda, and I've been friends with them since I think the third grade, and I've been really fortunate enough to have them in my life still to this day. So I would say the three of us were always hanging out in middle school and doing middle school girl things, you know, eating brownie batter and cookie dough and talking about some cute boy or, I don't know, going to the mall for the first time. Pretty standard. We thought we were rebels, even though, I mean, the worst thing we did was stay up past a curfew. Like, it wasn't anything big. So it was, a pretty good student. I got A's, volunteered a ton, was always about community and helping others. So it was pretty normal that way. I will say high school changed a bit. My parents got divorced when I was 16, and I would say that definitely had a huge impact on me in a lot of ways, but I still got really good grades and still volunteered a ton. But I'd say I probably became a little bit more introverted in high school, just going through all of that. But my friends were always there, and I had a really good experience with them.
Yeah, I was around that same age, like 15, 16. It was my sophomore year of high school when my parents split up as well. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if you have a similar like experience, but I don't like remember how I felt about things really. Like I do and I don't. Like it was such a weird time. Like I feel like I don't know. Like I think I turned all my focus into like sports and, you know, the different sports that I was involved in, and just like tried to tune that out. You know, obviously it didn't work, but you know, it was like, I don't know. It was just an interesting experience for me. But do you have, you know, did you turn to anything like that? Like, did you, you know, you said you went a little more introverted. Was that just something that made you kind of pause and think about life, or think about, you know, how things were going, or what was that like?
I've thought a lot about that too, just because I kind of what you're saying. I just think at that age, you're not emotionally ready to handle something like that. Like you understand what's happening, but on an emotional level, you really don't understand. The way in which my mom told me was pretty traumatic, and there's other details in there that were quite traumatic. And I think I just was a bit, I don't know if numb's the right word, but I don't think it really sunk in until a little bit later in life. So I just my brother had some stuff going on when he was in high school. Like I said, he's a couple years older than me. So I think I just kind of learned to not be any trouble and just kind of stay out of the way. And just, I would talk to my friends. I had really great friends, so I was able to talk to them and connect with them. But I don't think it really hit me until maybe senior year, college year, my freshman year of college. But yeah, it took me a little bit, and I felt a little bit numb and just kind of tried to stay out of the house and keep to myself and keep to my friends a bit more.
Yeah. I had you know, similar thing. It was just the friends. I think you're right. I think it's that like emotional, you know, maybe your brain's just not ready, and it has its own coping mechanisms of the things it does. But I don't know. Who knows?
That's such a hard age, because you're trying to figure out who you are, and you're the biggest concern you have is prom, and you're trying to figure out this and that, and then all of a sudden you throw that. I just don't think I was ready for it.
Yeah, there's just so many little things. And I know it was hard. I know I was mad at my dad. I was, you know, like I had all these different feelings and whatnot. But, you know, the experience was rough, but I just didn't put a lot of like focus on it. I was just trying to like do other things. And it's interesting.
Keep busy.
Yeah. One of the reasons, you know, I've been a wrestling coach for the last, you know, 6 years. Is the first year I haven't done it. And the last 6 years. And one of the things that really pushed me into coaching, I think, was the relationship that I had with my coaches in high school I believe from that experience. You know, like my coaches stepped up big time and were always checking on me, always had my back, and always like just a big part of my life. I remember, you know, my wrestling coach would, hey, come on over, like you guys can stay here, and then we'll leave first thing in the morning, or he'd come by and pick me up, he'd drop me off at home, you know, whatever it was. And my soccer coach was similar, and like, hey, you want to go fishing with me? You know, like he was a conservation officer, and he'd be like, hey, you want to go fishing with me? Or, hey, like, want to go turkey hunting with me? And, you know, whatever it was, like just kind of those extra things that always, I don't know, they just were there and like cared about me and took care of me outside of just the sport. And I really value that. And I think that's really led to why I wanted to be, one of the reasons, that I wanted to be a coach for sure. Like growing up, is those people that kind of invested and had my back.
Yeah, for sure.
Did, as far as like extracurriculars, did you do any sports, or did you do any like extracurriculars, band, choir, 4-H, that kind of thing growing up?
Yeah, I think kind of how you threw yourself into sports, I just threw myself into staying busy. So I was in everything. Like I volunteered a ton, and I was in band, and I was in student council, and I was in a group called Pause, which is peers assisting with students. And so we went into 5th grade classes and kind of tried to help them stay on a straight and narrow path and away from drugs,
Nice.
Particularly smoking. And then I played soccer, and I just was involved in everything I could.
Yeah.
Just stayed busy.
Yeah. Was that something that was like encouraged, like growing up? Like, did your parents do similar things like in their lives as well?
Honestly, I don't think so. I've always been
Just
one.
your thing.
I just really like to go.
Yeah, that's cool. What were there any people, teachers or friends or whoever it might be that like influenced you, in that adolescent, time frame, that middle school adolescent time?
I have a really amazing aunt. My mom has a sister, and she's been pretty incredible throughout my life. It's kind of almost a second mom. So she's someone that I would go to if I didn't want to ask my mom, or just had boy problems, or I don't know, any sort of question that came up. I'd always go to her, and I have those 2 best friends of mine. I'd say I really leaned on throughout my life. It's funny how you kind of, like you're talking about with your coaches, you find these people in your life and really almost look up to them and kind of look at them as role models. So I've definitely had a few people throughout the years, but I would say the most consistent were my aunt and my 2 friends. And then my godfather actually was a huge part of my life. He was a really great father figure kind of in my life. A strong male figure that just I really looked up to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love like hearing about people's, I don't know, support systems and the people that, kind of mentor them or lead them, or, people that they lean on. I think that's really cool. When you were looking towards college or, the next step after high school, did you know what you wanted to do? Did you know the direction you were headed? What was some of the inspiration behind that?
I firmly believe that everyone should take a year off between high school and college. I did not, but I really wish I would have.
I know. I'm with you.
I did the traditional, graduated and went to college, but I do have a fun story. So I wanted to go somewhere close to home, but not like close enough to home that I could be either living at home or just within an hour. So I looked at colleges outside of state, but they were just so expensive. It wasn't really an option. And I realized that there's reciprocity. So I looked at some Minnesota schools. But the funny story is that I was all signed up and ready to go to the University of La Crosse. I had a roommate. She was someone I knew.
Sure.
I was all set to go. My paperwork was almost submitted. And I was between there and then the University of Minnesota. They had a business school. And my dad really had pushed me to do business my whole life. Something he just really believed in and wanted me to do. So I got into the business school at Minnesota, but I was already signed up for La Crosse and I didn't know what to do. And my family on my mom's side gets into psychics and kind of stone readings and different fun things. So I was with my aunt, and just for kicks and giggles, I went and saw a psychiatrist. No, what do they call them?
Psychic.
What are they called? Psychic. I went to a psychic and I asked them, I said, I have 2 college options. Like, any insights for me? So I had my tarot card reading, and they told me that while both would be fine, I would be way happier at the University of Minnesota. So that night I went home and I completely flipped the switch on all of my college registrations, and I moved to the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, to attend business school.
I love that. That's so awesome. It also speaks to, I feel like, who you are too. Like, that's just, you're like such a, like, just go get them, And I love that. I love how quick you made that decision. Were you pleased with that decision?
Absolutely. Definitely a total different type of experience, because if I would have gone to La Crosse, my brother had gone there. It's a small town. I had a bunch of high school people that were going there.
Sure.
Minnesota was definitely a Big Ten school. Mm-hmm. I was a number in a huge classroom, but I wouldn't have traded it for the world. I met some lifelong friends. Actually, one of my best friends, I met her my first day freshman year. She lived in the same hallway as me, and we're still friends today. And she just had her first baby, which is really exciting to be able to have been there for her wedding and now her first child.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made some incredible connections, and it's what led me to Alaska. It's what led me to go to Montana. I would say going there really helped me experience the outdoors and get me to kind of where I am today.
Sure. And you said you studied business?
I started at Carlson and actually switched to the journalism school. I found out after 2 years of business school that suits and having to pit against my classmates was not my style. I'm more laid back and very much more of a hugs versus punches type of person. So I switched to journalism school and majored in public relations, but I've worked in marketing.
Nice. So that switch, where like, was it just like instantly, was that something you knew like when you got to the end of those 2 years or whatever, were you just like, no, I don't want to do this? And what was the influence to go the direction that you did with journalism and PR and that way?
I had a couple of friends who were also contemplating the same thing. So I talked to a bunch of different people and just kind of got their perspectives. And I did some informational interviews. And the thing is, for a lot of people, it's just a matter of getting a degree. And it's really what you do your internships in. Sure. So it was nice to know that I was able to go either route and could still get into a job that I was interested in. It just mattered kind of making sure I was intentional with my internships. Yeah. And then when I interviewed with the School of Journalism, it just was a better instant vibe. I liked the people a lot better. I resonated a lot better with them. The teachers were amazing. The college was amazing. Just instantly felt better. And as soon as I made the switch, I instantly was a lot less stressed out and just felt more at home.
Those, like I said, I completely agree with you of like taking that year off. What do you think that extra year, like, I don't know, like for me, I've talked about this on here before, but I would really encourage people to do the same thing. Like I felt so pressured into going to college and doing that. And I also didn't want to feel like left out of like, I wasn't doing what my peers were doing, you know, or, I don't know, like I felt like that sort of pressure for myself, to go to college and to do that and declare this major that, you know, it's heavily influenced by, I feel like, parents a lot of times. And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, they know us well, but I don't know. I don't, it was more like people told me this is what you should do. And, you know, I didn't want to miss out. But I totally would want to take a year off, and my encouragement is always like, take a year off or take some time off and then get involved, either internship or a job in the related field, whether that's working a desk at a lawyer's office if you're interested in law, you know, like just kind of seeing the ins and outs and like learning the ropes. Would you agree? Or like what would you give like advice or suggestions to?
Absolutely. I think there's so much you learn about yourself as you get older. I think we're really immature at that age and you don't really have an idea. Yeah. You're making a decision for what you want to do for the rest of your life. And it's hard to know at that age. And I think it would be great to take some time to work a little bit and, like you suggested, kind of be in the scene of what you're trying to get after. Because I didn't even know half the fields out there existed until I graduated. Right. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Yeah. And I think it could also provide insight into what you do for undergrad, whether you go for a BA or BS. So, for example, I was looking at one point potentially going back and doing oceanography or switching something up. Mm-hmm. But if I wanted to do that, I would have to go back and complete a BS to then get to go to grad school. So
that's so crazy.
I think there's it's insane, and for how expensive college is. And then you have people who then just end up going for generals or sociology, and they don't realize that they have to do continued education after that if they want to get a job. And it's this mentality in our society, like you said, that's just go from one school to another and then boom, you get a job. It's just this old way of life that's like, you go to school, you get married, you have kids, and it doesn't have to be that way. We need to break that mold. And to be honest, there's people that college isn't for them. And I think we should be promoting that and saying, hey, there's these great trades and you can make a ton of money in trades, and school might not be for you. And you know what? That's okay. That doesn't mean anything different. It's just a different way of living. Yep. I agree. And the same thing for my other point I was just going to say is that grad school, like, I don't understand the point of going to grad school right after college just because you don't have experience. And that's been a trend I've been seeing that I don't really understand. Yeah. I think, well, I agree. There's been this pressure. I think there was a time when college
was like getting your bachelor's degree or getting a degree meant a specific, like, you were guaranteed a job, and a decent paying job, good paying job at one point in time in our society, right? And I think that that's changed because now the pressure's gone that, like, everybody, that's what you were expected to do. And so it's kind of lost its, like, power, or like its reward isn't quite the same. Like, I know so many people, I'm sure you do as well, that have a degree in something that they don't care to be, involved in or do anything with. And they're just working a, whatever, like a restaurant job or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But society, like, puts these, like, undue like stresses and levels. And even asking people to come on the podcast, sometimes I get I get responses that are like, well, I'm just not really, like, satisfied with my career right now. Like, I don't know if I want to come on. And I get it, right? Like, you want to be proud of yourself, and you're not. And in some ways, some people aren't. But I think that that's the beauty of life. Like, we're where we're supposed to be, and, like, not fixating on some of these, like, quote, societal successes, but what is it that you want? Like, are you happy? Like, if you're happy, you're happy, and your story matters. And then there's so many people that are in the same place as you. I don't know. That was a little tangent, but I don't know. I think there's more to life than just what we do, and providing options, like you kind of said, of whether it's the trades or, some people are just go-getters and college isn't for them and they want to go a different route, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I would completely agree. And the other thing I would add to that too is just that I think people feel they are stuck in a career once they're in it. And I think there's just some stigma around that. And I wish that would kind of fall apart, because I think I might be in marketing for 10 years, but then you know what? I might completely switch it up and go back to school and do something different. And I think that's more than okay.
Absolutely. You're never too old to change or do something different or go after it. And there's a guy, are you familiar with Gary V or Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
And he talks about this. He made this one quote or this one thing that I watched or saw, and it was basically like, what, you're 30? Like, you've got 3 more lives to live, like 30. The average age is what? Like, the average lifespan is like 80 to 90 like years old. Like, you've got multiple, like, lives to live still, and like that, like, put things in perspective for me. And I was like, whoa, that's like a really deep way of thinking about that. Like, I just turned 32, and like I have at least another life to live, like, what's stopping me from doing what I want to do?
I think what comes in at that point, though, I was actually thinking about this last night, is just the fact that, because I am 30, and I think there's just this pressure that you should have X amount of saved in your 401k, and you should have this figured out because you should be retiring by 65. And what do you mean you don't have like $100,000 in savings? And what are you doing with your life? And there's just so much residual pressure. And I think that comes from, we're not that far removed from the Great Depression and those generations that went through that. So I think it's just a different way of living. And then you have these people who, we have these amazing ambassadors that just came through, and there is a couple, and they are taking the next 2.5 years off, and they are just biking from Alaska to Argentina, which is incredible. And I'm like, how are you doing that? Like, teach me your ways. It's just such a different mentality. And what does money mean, and how much do you need? And it's just, it's a lot to think through.
It is. And I fall victim to all of those, like, social pressures, like, I don't really look at myself as a success most days. And so, like, but it's a mental shift. It's something you have to work on, I think, because we're so programmed to think a specific way as we grow up, and through those fundamental years of, middle school, high school, college, those years that our brain isn't even fully formed yet. And you're like pumped full of these ideas and thoughts, and during those times. And, I don't know. It's something worth exploring, I think, and, like, looking at different options and not being or feeling stuck in whatever you're doing. Would you go back, and would you do things different if you could go back and, like, declare a different major or go a different direction?
Oof, that's hard, just because everything I've done has led me where I am today, and it's introduced me to everyone I've met. So I think that's such a hard one. sometimes I get a little bit frustrated with marketing because I feel like I'm just selling a widget to someone. But the cool thing is about the widget that I'm selling is that it's getting people outside and it's creating healthy, sustainable lives. So I think I feel better about that than I used to when I was working for a couple oil companies. But I think the only thing I would have gone back and did is I would have gone for a BS, and I probably would have gone into maybe oceanography or something, so I could study the oceans and figure out how to eradicate some of the pollution that's happening. I think that's something I would like to get involved in at some point in my life. I think the only thing if I could go back, the only thing I would share specifically with my younger self is just a better understanding of how to handle finances. I was not brought up in a household that we really spoke much about money. There wasn't a lot of talks about savings, and I just wish I would have done things a bit differently. I have cherished and loved every experience I've had. I just think I could have been smarter about a few purchases and decisions I've made. Especially because it's I think as a woman it's not as this is going to sound weird, but I don't think it's expected to be financially independent, but that is something I so much crave. Like, I am financially independent today, and I am very proud of that. And but having a better understanding of finances and how it all works, and especially from an investment standpoint and how to do stocks and different things of that nature. I wish I would have been taught that as a kid. That I think would have helped me out better in life.
I think everybody, which is, I don't know, like I've talked about this too. I've had a couple of people on that have mentioned this as well, but it's not something that we're taught in school. It should be a mandatory thing, shouldn't it? Like, at a young age, at high school, shouldn't you be taught like financing and finances and like what that's like? And shouldn't it be a mandatory gen ed in college that you take like a finance class or like personal financing? Like, I mean, I just feel like we're not set up for that. And it's something that is so important, and it's expected that our parents are the ones that teach us, and they're the ones that should know. And I mean, I don't think that that's fair for them necessarily, because they weren't taught either necessarily, you know? And I don't know. I think we definitely in society need to have a little bit more of a focus on helping people understand that. 'Cause I'm right there with you. Like, man, if I could know more, and there's no excuses these days, I guess, but it's just hard. It's hard to make that time and spend that time on like learning about the ins and outs of personal finance. And I don't know.
It'd be nice for our society in general just to have a lot of subjects be less taboo. Like, we talk about finances, but the other one is just mental health. Like, I definitely have struggled throughout the years with depression and had a lot of insecurities and different things throughout my life. A lot of it stemming from my parents' divorce and just different things. But I mean, man, someone needs to blow the lid off that. Just make it okay to talk about, and the fact that everybody struggles and that life isn't every day going to be smiles and rainbows, that it's going to be some pretty tough days. I wish we could talk more openly as a society about that.
I agree. And I think it's more and more becoming a little less taboo, but there's still so many like, just like socially, you're still held to like these different weird standards or stereotypes or thoughts, or, you know, and like you said, everybody's got their struggles. Everybody's struggling in one way or another in the mental health world, I think. And, but we're just expected to suck it up and like act tough and pretend like we're something that we're not sometimes. And versus like saying like, hey, I'm having a hard day and that's okay. I had a podcast, I had a guest on the other day, and he was talking about, you know, he was a job that he had basically, and working with teens that were kind of, you know, youth that were kind of in the system basically, and, you know, going through a whole bunch of different issues. And he has a lot of, you know, issues with that. He experienced some burnout. He experienced some like PTSD, started, you know, abusing alcohol, and started seeing that in himself and being like, I can't do this anymore, and I got to stop, and I got to move on. And, you know, eventually sought help and saw a counselor, or saw a, you know, a therapist. And, you know, I'm hearing more and more people talk about like being open about like, I go and see a therapist, or I sought out help and I needed it. And I think it's so important, and I love it. I love like part of Crazy Face Uno is empowering, loving, and celebrating. And I really want to celebrate when people talk about that, and talk about like getting help, because so many times it's that thing that we don't talk about. And I think that that's the power of storytelling, right? That's the power of what we're doing now. It's like being able to talk and share part of our life, whether that's whatever experience you've gone through. It's important. It's important to see that. I think that other people are going through similar things, and you never know what's going to touch somebody and what's going to give someone hope or give someone a direction in which they want to go. And I agree, mental health is a problem. It's an issue, and it's permeated our society, and it's something that we need to talk more about.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of along that too, I think it's always really good to keep incredible people in your lives that can build you up when you're having those tough days. And I was thinking, actually, as you're talking, just about different things in my life and struggles I've had, and going through that. And two people that stand out in my mind that I did not recognize and I really need to call out is actually, them, but Caitlin and Andrew. They have been some of the biggest rocks in my life, and they probably don't even know it, but I have to say those two have really been a couple that I've looked up to. And obviously with my parents going through divorce and seeing a lot of other relationships in my life not being super great, I've tried to find a couple great examples in my life of kind of couples I idolize, and that I'm just like, I hope that one day I can find what they have. And I have to say, by far, like, that couple is just amazing from all aspects. I mean, they are not only two of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life, but they always make me feel great, and they are just so welcoming and willing to help whenever you need it. And they're so fun to be around, and just as a couple and how they interact, like, it's been one of the best things in my life, having them in my life, just getting to see that, because it gives me hope that I would be able to have a relationship like they have, because I love the relationship they have.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? And yeah, they're a couple that I look up to as well. And I completely agree. We call them, Andy was my best man, and Caitlin was her, is it maid of honor? Is that right?
Yep.
I always forget the ladies side of things, but yeah, at our wedding, and it's Dana's sister and brother-in-law, and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law now. Yeah, we call them, our best couple.
They really are.
They're the best. They're awesome. They're just good people, and you can always count on them to be there for you. And I agree. I think I like the fact that you kind of called that out too, that you like are looking for that example of, relationships and marriage that you appreciate and that you respect. And with the fact that, your parents did get divorced, and I've never really thought about that, but I like till you just kind of mentioned that. And I wonder who those couples were, outside, like, cognitively, or like not. I haven't really thought about it, so I wonder, like, are there couples that, if I was to think about that I've looked up to over the years that have been that example of love and relationship and people in my life. I've never really thought about it.
I definitely, having had some failed relationships, have kind of sought to find relationships that I would aspire to kind of be. And besides Caitlin and Andrew, I'd say my mom and stepdad are the other one. And those have really been guiding lights for me. And it's been funny, like, dating is hard. Like, I don't care what anyone says. And figuring out who you want to spend the rest of your life with is even harder, because newsflash, like, there is no perfect person. And you're not perfect either. So it's about finding that person that makes you want to wake up every day and be a better person, and that brings out the best in you, and that even if you're going to have a rough day with them, that you go to bed and wake up and be excited to be with them again. And it's hard, because you're going to have your non-negotiables and things that you're like, nope, sorry, I can't, I'm not okay with that. And there's things you're going to have to bend on. And it's just figuring that out has been a struggle for me. And to think that someone would want to spend the rest of their life with me gives me like, what?
Yeah. Is that like, is that something that's like on the forefront of your mind, or like that you think about? Like, is it scare you to like think about being with someone for your entire life, I guess?
Absolutely. I'm terrified of it. And I definitely think that stems from I mean, I was totally into fairy tales as a kid and thought Prince Charming was going to sweep me off my feet. And then, I mean, my parents were together for 25 years and watching how terribly that fell apart, it really impacted me. And having a couple of relationships that didn't work out, I'm terrified of it. I mean, especially as the older you get, the more set in your ways you kind of get, and the more you define who you are. And I think for me, I just want to laugh. Like, I want to find someone who makes me laugh and that we can just have a really great time together. And wants to go on adventures, but I'm not always the easiest person, and I am I'm a ball of energy. So it's just finding someone who is excited about that, and then also I'm super excited about is just it's a lot. But yeah, it's terrifying to me. I think commitment is very terrifying.
Yeah. Do you feel pressure to like get married, to settle down, and to do that? Is that something you want, or is that something you feel pressured to do?
I like the idea of finding someone who I can grow old with. I think it's very, not even just a romantic idea, but just like a very happy idea that I could have someone who sees me at my best and sees me at my worst, and that 10 years from now, 20, 50 years from now, I can look back on and remember those times. So I don't care if that ends up in marriage or just like a life partner. I don't know that I'm sold on the idea of marriage, but I love the party part of it. But I do believe in like a monogamous relationship of finding someone that is my person. That will always be my plus one for whatever. And then it's funny, but I think the only pressure I do feel is just on the aspect of I haven't really decided if I want kids or not. And I think the more I think about it, adoption, I think, is honestly on my mind. But that's just strictly from a biological standpoint of I'm not getting any younger. And I got plenty of time. So I would say that's just more of like a societal thing, but luckily my brother had a kid, so my mom's off my back, so that's fine.
I know. Well, I'm an only child, so my mom's not she's not off my back, but she's not been too pressurous. But
get going.
Right. We keep saying, you know, like Andy and Caitlin, it's their first, you know. We don't want to step on their toes, so we'll wait for them. But
that's why you get a dog.
Yeah, we got one. It's great. I know.
You're set.
Yeah, we're set.
You got time.
He's our boy. That's for sure. I love that guy more than I ever thought I would.
Right? Isn't it funny? Like, they are absolutely family members.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're really close to yours as well. I was crying.
Yeah, I was crying at the vet office this weekend when I found out that he like sort of tore his ACL. Like, I was just blubberworks. I mean, that's my fur baby.
Yeah, I would be the same way.
What?
We moved down here, and you know, you have people that watch often Andy and Caitlin or their parents or Dana's parents or whatnot, or whatever. It's just a lot of people, anybody that's met Chance, he's a good dude. He's easy to get along with, and so we have people to watch him when we would go and do things, you know. And we moved down here, and we like got a hotel room for free in Miami for 2 nights, and we're like, okay, this is awesome. But what do we do with Chance? And I was like, I think what Dana has found is it Hoover or
Rover?
Rover, that's the one. Rover. Gosh, that was silly. Rover. And we found this gal that we absolutely love and loves Chance and gets excited whenever, you know, she has the opportunity to watch him. But it's just thinking about the idea of like handing him over to a stranger that doesn't know him, that like I like started crying, and I was like, I just want the best for him. I don't want anything to happen to him. Like, you know, I don't know, man. I'm an emotional wreck when it comes to that dude. So he's my dude. He's my support system.
Absolutely, totally get that.
Well, Kim, if we, you know, look beyond college, we kind of hit on a few topics there, but as you graduated, you know, you talked about Alaska. What led you to Alaska / like, what was your next steps after graduating college?
Well, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So of course, what do? You get a summer job. So I took a kayaking job in Valdez, Alaska, and went up for the summer and ended up staying for 5 years. I moved to Anchorage and worked in marketing and absolutely loved it. Some of the people I met there are just absolutely the most incredible individuals I've ever met. I think putting yourself in that type of environment that far away from family just really shapes you and draws you closer to people than ever. I definitely cried my first year. That was the hardest move I've ever made. I moved without really knowing anyone. I was dating a guy, but that didn't work out. And it just, yeah, I was alone in a state that it was really expensive to get home. And
Yeah.
entered Diesel. That's one of the reasons I got Diesel, my dog.
Oh.
I just really needed a connection, and he became my lifeline. And I will absolutely 100% say he was the best decision I ever made, and he's absolutely made me the person I am today.
Oh.
He's going to be 8 in a couple days, which is crazy because I've had him since he was 8 weeks old.
Yeah, that is crazy.
But he's incredible. And so, yeah, I stayed up there and absolutely loved it. Alaska's amazing for anyone who's never been. I highly recommend it. It's just also a pretty hard place to live. So after 5 years, I did a little soul searching, and I actually spent a summer in California. I needed some time just to kind of reground myself, and I went to work for Paul Newman Camp. It's in California, and it was, again, one of the best decisions I've ever made. I spent a summer working with children who have chronic illnesses, and a lot of those kids might not make it to be into their teens. And it was a very humbling experience that really kind of brought me back down to earth and helped me kind of reset of what I wanted to do and figure out what was important to me.
Wow, I didn't know you spent some time in California. That's cool. Alaska, so it's a kayak, what was it? Kayak camp, or what was it?
Just kayaking outfitter.
Kayaking outfitter, so nice. And you did that for 5 years. Were you like leading?
I did that for summer, and then I moved to Anchorage to work in marketing.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. Do you feel like you found, I know you've talked about it, like you've always been this adventurous, person, and you've like outdoors and things were always something that you enjoyed and found, joy in and pleasure in. But did being out there and like in Alaska, did that really like bring some of that out a little bit more, or did you feel like your location kind of affected what you, like the things you did outside of work?
Absolutely. I mean, the ability to recreate up there is just bar none incredible. I mean, I got into mountain biking. I found mountain biking up there. I got into cyclocross up there. I got into trail running. I mean, all sorts of adventures that I would never have had the opportunity to do in Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin, in Minnesota, you can get outside, but it's just not the same. I mean, you'd go backpacking in Alaska and not see people for a week. There's bears, there's moose. I mean, you get off the grid and you don't have cell service, and there's places that, I mean, I went and taught skiing in a village that the only way in or out was via plane, and it was bush plane. Yeah. It was just a total different mentality and way of life, and it got me to really embrace the outdoors on just such a extreme level that I never would have had the opportunity if I stayed in the Midwest. And it taught me about pack rafting, and that I could go and mountain bike in and then strap my bike to a pack raft and then pack raft out. Like it's just insane, the opportunities you have there. Definitely ignited the flame that was already lit into a full-blown fire. Yeah.
It sounds like it like showed you what's possible and kind of like led you about like throughout that adventure. Man, see, I had a inkling that was potentially the case, but yeah, I didn't realize that you had spent so much time, I guess, out that direction. When you found yourself at the camp in California, it sounds like that was something that impacted you quite a bit. Would you say that's the case?
Absolutely. Those kids are incredible. I mean, it was one of the best summers of my life. I met some amazing counselors that I worked with, I'm still friends with today. And it was just such an incredible experience to meet these kids who, I mean, they could be out of school for months, for a year. I mean, they could be in the hospital any day. Like they just appreciated life on such a different level that I was taking for granted, that it just made me really reevaluate some things. And I was in a relationship that wasn't really good at the time, and I was trying to figure out what my next move was going to be, and it just couldn't have come at a more perfect time. And while I know we were there to help them, I think they helped me more than I helped them. They taught me so much about life. And it was amazing. And there's definitely a few counselors that stood out and a few campers that really made some impressions. And after that, I realized it was kind of time to go home. So I moved out actually after that, and I moved back to Minnesota so I could be closer to some family and some key friends that I'd really been missing and really wanted to have more in my life for a few years. So that's kind of how I ended up back in in the Midwest, but that camp was incredible, and I highly recommend it for anyone who's interested. Paul Newman puts on this series of camps throughout the U.S. and actually internationally, and it's
Cool.
amazing.
It sounds like a really great experience. I think that like moments like that, working in special education, like I did back in Minnesota, you learn an appreciation for things differently. Like you see people that have just different struggles than you. It's not that it's not always that they're worse or like this is some trophy for having the worst thing, but it's like, oh, like I have so many things to be grateful for. And you learn this new perspective, this new outlook on life that, I don't know, I think if you allow it, it can really be impactful and really help shape who you are.
Totally. It's about being vulnerable and allowing those experiences to help shape you. I would absolutely agree with that. And I think kids in general just have so much to teach us. I mean, they view the world through a lens that's pure, and they don't have these preconceived notions or all these ideas in their head of how they shouldn't like this person, or shouldn't like that person, or this is bad, or this is great, or that's not good, or that's awesome. So it's really cool to just see a lens of these people are just so pure at the heart of it, and get reminded what really matters in life.
Yeah, absolutely. When did I know you've done some races. Did you do, what was your first race you ever did? Whether that was running, whatever kind of race that was. When was that?
It would have been my freshman year in college is when I did my first, I would say, official race. Okay. And it was the Disney World Marathon.
Ooh.
I just went big.
That sounds fun. Was that down in Florida, down here?
Yep, it was in Disney World.
Nice. And go ahead. No, go ahead.
I have a pretty incredible stepmom, and she is really into racing. So she was into Ironman and had done a ton of marathons and a ton of different things. And she was a really inspiration. She was a big inspiration to me. And so when I was a freshman, her and I kind of talked about it. And then we decided her, my dad, and I would all do the Disney World Marathon. So I ran it, and then they walked it. And it was a really cool experience to get to have with them.
That's so fun. How many marathons have you done since? Or total?
I want to say 4 or 5.
Okay.
I think I've done.
Nice.
I'm just starting to dabble in trail running, which is a total different ballgame.
Oh, nice. Because you've done some bike races as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was your first bike race? Where was that? How old were you?
I was in college, and I was doing cyclocross. I love cyclocross, and I recommend it to anyone. It's pretty much 45 minutes to an hour of just like all out redlining, and then you're done. It's a series of, it's a lot, but it's a series of like, you're on kind of, it looks like more like a road bike, gravel bike kind of scenario. And you are going through mud pits, you're going through sand, you're jumping off your bike and leaping over barriers, you're running up staircases, you're taking all sorts of different types of terrain. And it's a set circuit course, and you do so many laps depending on the time, but it's so fun.
That sounds really fun. I don't know if I've ever even heard of that. That's really cool. What's it called again?
Cyclocross.
Cyclocross. Nice. And have you done some like cross country stuff as well, like with biking?
Mm-hmm. I've done a few tours. One I did on the East Coast, and I was in New Zealand last year and did a tour there. And then I've also done some mountain bike racing and then some gravel racing. The biggest one I did was Dirty Kansas 2 years ago, which would have been 200 miles on gravel, which was an experience.
It's a good name too, Dirty Kansas.
Yeah, it was a good race, but racing is a pretty fun thing. I like the community. That's mostly why I do it.
Yeah. What if there's like one outdoor thing like you had to choose to do? Obviously you got into trail running recently, but like if you had to choose one for the rest of your life, you couldn't do anything else, what would you choose?
I'd say mountain biking. Yeah. There is nothing more fun than getting to just go through the woods on your bike. And my dog is a really phenomenal mountain biker. So he'll run along in front. And then if he gets tired, he's so good. He can hear the wheels. So he'll pull off to the side. He'll let you go by, and then he'll fall in line behind you. Nice. And just seeing the forest fly by from my bike and then getting to watch him run is just probably one of my most favorite things in the world.
That's so cool. Yeah. I don't think I've ever done mountain biking, like true mountain biking or anything like that. That sounds like a really fun time. I want to get into... You would
like it. It's amazing.
I want to get into biking more. I haven't haven't really gotten into biking. We used to bike a lot as a family, my mom and my dad, back when I was a child, so childhood stories. But I remember we'd take our bikes and we'd go on like 9-10 mile, like bike rides, and nothing crazy, they're just leisurely, but we'd just go around the town and have fun that way. But I haven't really done too much with bikes, probably since like middle school. High school, I don't know, like middle school, I rode my bike everywhere, like it was just my thing, like small town. So rode my bike from point A to point B, wherever it was. I didn't stop, slow down. I mowed lawns, so I'd even like pull my lawnmower behind my bike as I was going because I didn't want to walk.
Nice.
I found different ways to like just always use my bike for things. But yeah, I need to get into that more. And Dana and I, we both got rid of our bikes when we moved here to Florida, but we both talked about how it's something we'd like to invest into eventually here. So gonna have to do
Awesome.
that. Yeah. Trail running, different type of thing. When did you do that? When did you start getting into that? What's that been like for you?
I've always liked running just because I found it kind of like my yoga zen moment, therapeutic, so to speak. And it's something that my dog and I can do, and I can just go off and go for as long or as short as I want. So I've always really enjoyed it. And then in Minnesota, just getting off the road and away from cars was more appealing. And the more I mountain biked, the more I just liked
Sure.
being in the woods.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've really started to like it out here, except there's a lot more elevation out here. So it's a lot harder.
Hey.
But yeah, hey, those hills, those mountains.
What?
But
Yeah.
it's been great. I really enjoy it, and I like it a lot.
Nice. That's awesome. What are there any of your like favorite memories from some of your adventures?
I really loved my trip to New Zealand. There was a specific part of it where we did a bike tour. It's called the Old Ghost Road, and I went with two friends of mine, Ethan and then my buddy Mikey. And it's one of those moments where you really test yourself. And I remember I was riding and I was sicker than sick, and I was doing this trail and they made it look so easy. And I remember I was getting so frustrated, and I remember at the top of the mountain, I just wanted to hook my bike over the edge. And it was just like such a moment. And I remember just calming myself down, eating a Snickers, and then I just rode. And it was just like one of those moments that you're like, wow, I made it through that. But getting to the end and
right?
yeah, exactly. But getting to the end and seeing my friends and just that whole experience of being in this really remote area and this beautiful landscape with mountain peaks everywhere and forests and animals, it was beautiful. And getting to share that with people and getting to reflect on that is been a really great experience.
Is it so I really don't enjoy, I'm learning to enjoy running. And like whatnot. I think I've always done it as like a means to an end, for so long with being in sports. It was just this thing like you had to do, right? You put in the time, you ran, whatever. So, but I never really enjoyed it too much, but even outside of running, it's just fitness, getting out there. I think there's a lot of, it's not always the most fun going through these specific things, but it's like coming out on the other end, you feel great. You feel like you accomplished something. You feel like you did something, and it's like working towards something. Do you think that there's value in that? Like, you've been in a lot of these different races. You're talking about getting to the top of this mountain and wanting to just throw your bike off the edge. Like, it was hard. It sucked, obviously, right? But there's something about it, the camaraderie that you get, the experience, the like sense of accomplishment afterwards, the friendships, the journey. What is it about getting out there, adventuring, these big, long, these hard things that we do that continue to draw us in as like society, as people?
I think it's testing yourself, for me anyways. Like, I think it's pushing your limits and kind of expanding your boundaries and going after the unknown and seeing if you can hash it or not. And then coming out the other side, having that experience and knowing you're that much stronger for it. It can shape itself in a number of different ways, but I mean, Dirty Kansas, for example, was hard. It was really hard. And I feel really fortunate that I had a good friend to go through it with. And, I think it's just that testing and seeing if you can do it. Can you ride 200 miles? Can you make it to that mountain peak? Can you ride that distance? Can you run that far? Can you run that elevation? Like, what is it? And then being able to, I mean, and sometimes it's not even about that. It's just like what you get to see and experience, and you know it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And then getting to watch your progress and knowing that you did it and that you can go farther and harder next time. But I think for me, it's definitely the challenge, and it's for me a very personal challenge. Like, I'm not motivated by time or the fact that I could do it under 6 hours or the fact that I did it under 4 hours. I'm more motivated by what is my best, and then having kind of my markers out there, and seeing if I can accomplish it to my standards, and then getting to share that with someone, because I don't enjoy doing races just for the sake of doing it. And if I do it with friends, I like it, because then I can talk about like, oh, did you hit that hill, or like, did you see that one mud pit, or that to me is what makes it worth it.
It's the,
and I think society loves that. It's the, I hate to say it, I'm not big on Instagram necessarily, but it is that Instagram effect of like taking that photo and having that memory to look back on, and sharing that story. It's kind of what you're trying to do. It's storytelling. It's creating that humanitarian aspect of connectivity to people and life, and embracing what it's worth, and living in that moment.
Yeah, I can totally see that. That's cool. Well, let's, I've got a few more questions for you as we start to maybe kind of close things out here. And let's start things off with, what would you say you're most proud of to date?
Probably my ability to handle change. I've had a lot of it throughout my life in a lot of different ways, and I think change/resilience, just being able to go somewhere new on my own, not knowing anyone, starting over and making it and being successful, and supporting myself and not needing to necessarily lean on people. I think that's something, that independence that I've been able to gain and really foster, I'm really proud of.
Nice. Good for you. That's awesome. What do you look forward to most in the future? Do you have any goals, ambitions?
Traveling. I really want to experience some new cultures. So I want to get to South America. I really want to get to Croatia, a couple other really cool places. And,
nice.
And some of those travels I want to do on my own. I did my first solo trip to China, and I successfully made it to the Great Wall by myself. And
nice.
It was a really unique experience. And I think I'm looking forward to just kind of experiencing more and seeing more and doing more.
That's awesome. Do you ever think about your legacy?
No.
You don't?
I guess, a little bit more from the sense of not so much about being remembered, just more about what I do here and the impact it's going to have. So I do think about, like, volunteering is really big to me. I really like helping, and I want to help others, and I feel really fortunate to have what I have. So I look at it more, I guess, from the standpoint of how can I take what I've been given and help others with the privilege that I have, and be able to share that, and the fact that I feel really fortunate to be where I'm at and to have what I have. So yeah, I just, how can I, in a really helpful way, like, build my community up and be more sustainable, and leave the earth in a better place than how I had it potentially.
That's awesome. Last question. Looking back, what advice would you tell little Kim?
It's going to be okay. Yeah. I would tell her to not worry so much, that a lot of things you're going to worry about, really, at the end of the day, you won't remember. So don't worry about it. Just chill out and enjoy the ride.
I love it. I love it so much. That's always great. Kim, is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything you want to say before we go? Feel free to plug anything you want.
I would just leave with a quote. There's a quote that's really resonated with me throughout the years, and that would be, "What would life be if we had the courage to attempt anything?" And I really enjoyed that quote, because I think we as people need to push our boundaries and need to go for new things, and really, really challenge ourselves to be the best versions of the people we can be, and to not get complacent.
Say it one more time, just so we can remember it.
What would life be if we had the courage to attempt anything?
What would life be if we had the courage to attempt anything? I love it. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to close this out. Thank you all so much for listening. Please visit us on Facebook and Instagram. You can comment on our posts. If you want to go above and beyond, please share the Crazy Face Uno podcast with your friends and family or just random strangers on the street. We're welcome to everyone. Once again, please visit crazyfaceuno.com to purchase our merchandise and donate. Your contributions help us tell more stories like Kim's and stories just like yours. Thanks again for listening. Love you all. Peace.